So our next expert is Isabelle Granger, who directs the Disaster Law Programme at the International Federation of the Red Cross Red Crescent Societies. So Isabelle, could we start by you giving an overview of what the international legal framework relevant to disaster risk reduction law is?
At international level, there are a number of international legal instruments that are relevant to DR. As example, the Convention on the Prevention of Oil Spill, or the Convention that governs a nuclear accident. So these conventions request government to adopt mitigation action to prevent the occurrence of these disasters, and also request government to mitigate the impact of these disasters and adopt early warning systems, and of course implement in practice at national level the content of these international instruments. There are also other non-binding tools that are relevant to disaster risk reduction. The International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, together with UNDP, we have developed recommendations for lawmakers in order for them to strengthen their legal framework and mainstream disaster risk reduction at national level. And these recommendations, actually, this tool supports the implementation at national level of the Sendai framework.
And could you give us an overview of how this international legal framework gets translated at the national level?
So of course, implementations of law is essential for effective disaster risk management and effective disaster risk reduction. We have undertaken a comparative analysis of the legislation in place in 31 countries, and we have realized that there are a number of challenges that prevent effective disaster risk reduction legislation. In order to have effective disaster risk reduction legislation, the disaster risk management laws are essentials, so they can ensure that institutions are established, and they can also request that these institutions mainstream disaster risk reduction in their decision and plan. In addition to that, sectoral laws are also equally important, and it is really a challenge and an area of opportunities for government. In many opportunities, the governmental entities that manage different sectoral laws, such as building codes, environmental laws, the law responsible for the management of resources. In many cases, they do not coordinate together, and this is an area of opportunity. As these laws are essential and are essential to address underlying risk of urban and rural areas.
And in your experience, what are some of the principal challenges encountered by parliamentarians with implementation at the national level?
Well, communities are at the core of the work of the Red Cross, so we want to make sure that the voices of communities are heard. And in our research, we have evidence has shown that in some cases there are legal provisions that are set out in laws, but unfortunately they're not sufficiently detailed or comprehensive to allow for implementation in practice. And one example of that are provisions regarding the involvement of communities in decision-making bodies, and also provision regarding the involvement of women and vulnerable groups in these decision-making bodies. So this is really an area that could be further improved.
So Isabelle, as you know, issues of gender are very high up on the international agenda. How have you seen this outworked in relation to disaster risk reduction?
Well, after disasters, the occurrence of gender-based violence is often increasing. due to various factors. A couple of years ago, the International Federation published a report called Unseen, Unheard, and some recommendations were made in this report regarding how disaster risk management law can address these issues. At the moment, we find ourselves we have undertaken additional research in Ecuador, Zimbabwe, Nepal, and as well literature review of at global level. So we want to be able to better understand how legal framework can better support and address these issues. One of the preliminary findings is that in many cases the prevention system that applies in normal time does not apply as efficiently in disaster response situation. And there again, there could be opportunities to strengthen the relationship between the various entities. So basically, in order for the disaster risk management systems to be better connected to the prevention system that would apply in normal time. So this is, again, I mean, this is still work in progress, but this is an area that we are exploring in order to be able to provide more precise recommendation in this area.
And finally, Isabelle, could you outline what you envisage the future work of the IFRC being in relation to these issues?
In our research, we have evidence has shown that in some cases there are legal provisions that are set out in laws, but unfortunately they're not sufficiently detailed or comprehensive to allow for implementation in practice. And one example of that are provisions regarding the involvement of communities in decision-making bodies, and also provision regarding the involvement of women and vulnerable groups in these decision-making bodies. So this is really an area that could be further improved.